with Solopunk Aotearoa, I deliberately went out hard and fast and urgent. And the reason for this is because the issues that we face are actually hard and fast and urgent. And if you don't go out and try things, you don't tend to know what you don't know. And I'm a heuristic learner, I take risks, and I have worked for the last 35 years of my life in the gap between policy and reality. And I don't think people realise this, but every time policy is formed, it's community or business or farmers that have to implement it, and usually the policy makers don't actually have the experience on the ground. Essentially what we're going to do, so Solopunk Aotearoa is not going to go away. I think you probably know this about me, I'm tenacious. And so what we're planning to do is to actually do events right throughout the year rather than concentrate them in a 2-day event. So already we have planned events for Matariki at the end of June, spring equinox and summer solstice. We're planning social events on the Friday night, and there will be other events in the weekend following. We have just completed our first major event, and we were very pleased. We probably got about 600 native trees in the ground at the Burke Street Dog Park. We worked with TCDC Parks and Reserves to make that happen, and we were really gobsmacked with the number of people that actually turned out in the rain and planted trees all day. So I would say to you that that enthusiasm is there in the community to actually get involved in doing things that are meaningful for our future. The other thing I would like to say is I've spoken with a lot of people in our community over the past 8 months, and quite frankly, I've been quite gobsmacked by some of the stuff I've learned. And one of the things that makes me, I guess, ashamed is that everybody seems to expect that our teenagers are going to fix these problems for us. Even our millennials are telling me that. And I think as we as adults, if we can't get ourselves together, what hope are our young people going to have? So I just want to say that to you. There's been some huge positives. We have a remarkable team, and some of our team based in Wellington, some of our team is based in Auckland. And so we've got some of the best minds in the country working with us because people want to do something. And I worked in government, so I know how long things take, but we haven't got that length of time. I just read last week that the planet's shifted on its axis because of the level of water melt, because every piece of ice, every piece of natural ice on the planet's melting right now, and because of the redistribution of water, the planet's shifted on its axis. We're also experiencing stuff from the weather events we're seeing now, the climate changes we're seeing now are from how we were acting 30 years ago. So, you know, what I'll say to you is we're in for a rocky ride. And so part of the thrust into the future is developing resilience both into our environment and into our people, because that's the other thing I've seen in our community. It is deep levels of anxiety, not just from climate heating, but also from COVID and those issues which are not going to go away. And when I read that our business community wants certainty and wants business as usual, I think, how can these people be leading multi-million-dollar organisations if they think that's the truth? Because it goes against the fundamental rules for them. Anyway, I've said my piece, so I will, this is for Strat. I have emailed staff with this report.
There just might be some points of clarification that people would like to ask you.
Sure.
And thank you.
Can't escape that easy, eh?
No, you can't. Thank you for coming. And look, we all appreciate that incredible work you've done for our community over the years.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that that work will continue despite, you know, your setbacks here. So just to make sure that we acknowledge that to you.
Thank you.
It's been powerful and it's been appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Strat.
So any points of clarification?
Yeah, and I just love the idea that you know, we can do smaller things more frequently.
Destination, so Megan at Destination Coromandel said to me, and she was the one that really triggered this, she said to me that basically it's solar punk every day. because really, in terms of us as individuals, it's the small changes that we make in our lifestyle that are going to add up to make the cumulative difference. And also we're planning to use, so, you know, I've said one of the major things that's come out of the funding is we now have an internet presence through a website, Facebook and Instagram, and we're planning to use that as the educational tool. So I want you to realise that education is really still fundamentally at the heart of what we're doing, whether it's through arts or science.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Can I just say, Debs, that I've sat here for quite a while now and I've seen many people not able to say we need to change direction or we need to stop altogether. So thank you for your ability to try, assess, change, stop. That's really, really appreciated. And we're going to have to do that better and better as time goes on.
Well, I personally don't see things not working out as a failure. It's basically you predict or you anticipate how you think may things will work, and when you don't find out that they don't quite work that way, then you have to change direction. And we're actually all going to have to change direction, and we don't seem to be prepared for that as a community or our leaders.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for making the time to come speak to us.
My pleasure.
Deb and Ruth. Welcome, Ruth.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just a few minutes we've got. So.
Yes, and I've got sadly, unfortunately, something else was brought up on Sunday, which is extremely important, and it does reflect very badly on the council. But first of all, the first thing I'd like to bring up is the fact that I left a message. Anzac Day, I was really quite upset along with a lot of other people that went to the dawn service, apart from the fact that being around the back through the alleyway way of taking somebody, the elderly and the people that fought for our country, down to the service lane to the cenotaph. Get there, and what do we see? We see advertising hanging up there, which, by the way, was taken down. I went home, rang up and made a complaint with the council about what had happened on Anzac Day. And I got a letter, which I really appreciated. Now, I did get snail mail from the mayor because I don't have internet and I don't have no intention of getting it at this stage. I do use it elsewhere occasionally. About the War Memorial lighting, she said something had been stolen. That War Memorial should have been lit up red from Poppy Day, not from after 6 o'clock on Anzac morning. That, I think, was an absolute shame on the town. It just showed that all the people that from this area, and there was a large number of people from this area that fought overseas at many wars, especially the First World War and the Second World War, that they just meant nothing. I'm sorry, that's how it came across. Not just my opinion, but others that were there as well. The speaker system, I went and spoke to the person about that, and I was the RSA man because the mayor tried to put things back to some degree onto the RSA. And as I said to the gentleman, all you need is a speaker facing the public, not the two speakers facing the speakers. You know, the people not behind the mic. That is pathetic. And I have brought this up to them nearly every year for the last several years, but people, obviously not last year, but people don't listen. So much for their expertise. Advertising, that advertising that was hanging up there, we stood there, and when you looked across, all you saw was the Queen and the other thing advertising. It was a police sergeant that went over and asked someone to remove it there and then. It was nothing to do with the council having it removed, and it should not have been there on that day. Oversights, small things, but really offensive. And when I've mentioned the march route, I will give the council credit though. I happened to go up to the memorial like I always do on Anzac Day up at Totra, and the memorial up there was beautifully painted. I was speaking to somebody, it happened to be his 19-year-old grandson that had been employed by the council, but he'd done that job with pride, and it shone. It was beautiful, and I was pleased to see that because I had come to this community board many years ago about the disgraceful state it was in. So that was a big thumbs up to that young lad. And it would actually be nice for a young person to receive a letter from the community board saying, it's been brought to our attention, thank you very much for the good job you do. Because that's showing them that respect is actually being given back. Number 2, this is a thing that was brought up on Sunday, taxi mobility. I belong to the Thames Union Parish, which is at St James's, which, by the way, on Anzac morning, our parishioners could not park outside the church because somebody in their wisdom decided that they would have the cones stopping anyone going to be able to park outside the church. Cones could have been put further up near the Cracker Creek so that people could see the road was closed for the 10 o'clock march coming down and then going into Walter Street. When I spoke twice to the person there, wasn't very impressed with his attitude, and I said, well, can you please let the people, they can come out and let me know. It was a bit drizzly. Our average at that church, and it's kept this way because of these older people, are 85. We've got people in their late 90s. They're not going to stop, get out, go and ask somebody. They're going to go and find somewhere else to park. And what happened when they came out after church and that? They had to walk some distance to their vehicles in rain. That, once again, was another slap and lack of respect. And anyway, he said, I can ask me, where was he when I went out the second time? Sitting on the park bench there playing on his device. Well, that was a lot of use to nobody, wasn't it? Excuse me. But anyway, the taxi mobility card. I've been asking for a couple of years now, the taxi chat, about the taxi mobility card being they can get a discounted rate, because we have a gentleman who comes every Sunday who has only one leg and he is dependent on the taxi and he is having to pay the $25 each way. And I said, well, what about it? They have been trying for 2 years, I understand, the Thames taxis have gone to great expense to buy the vehicle themselves. They have not had any support, and he told me on Sunday that he's been to Waikato Regional Council, and I understand that the only reason why that the subsidy card has not come through is because TCDC are not moving on it. That is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. These mobility vehicles that do not work on Saturdays and Sundays, so you can't ring up St John's and they're not going to take you to church anyway, because they're there for medical reasons. You can't get the health shuttle for that. And the other mobility vehicles that are about, they're there Monday to Friday. They're not there for the weekend. And it is a right that has been here longer than governance has been in New Zealand.
Got a choice in.
So I'm just giving you that point.
Yeah, no, that's the point. Yeah.
3, the roading at Tararoo, I'm banging on about it. After we had the big storm here, 2-3 Januaries ago, I was assured that year and the following year that road was going to be properly reinstated by Higgins, and it still has not been done properly. We still have potholes and what have you, and I would be absolutely disappointed if in the interim all the patch-up jobs that have been done on it have been at council's expense. It should never have been our expense. They were meant to have done it. It was their big equipment they kept down there and their metal and that hasn't been done. And 4thly, and to me most importantly, but I left it till last because I know it's going to be a bit of a banger. I first...
21 minutes.
Okay, well, yeah. I did explain that because of the mobility thing I would be a little bit. I first made contact in 16th of April 2019 to Derek Thompson at the time about cycles on footpaths. And having also been a victim, almost run over several times, yes, I know, roll your eyes if you like, it is against the law. It's against the law. They are not allowed to ride on the footpath, especially around on the waterfront. And I've just, I went and said something to the people at the hearing. If you want to see a good photo of witnesses of people, a family on the footpath going to go around in front of your sign that says share with care, which is a picture of a pedestrian and a cycle on the seawall, go down and have a look at the hearing. So when you go to get your coffee, have a little look at the hearing shop there, and they've got the thing down this morning, so I actually took a photo of it, yet another one. But I got a reply the other day from a gentleman called Ed Varley from the roading manager. Now, I rang about this, I don't know who Ed Varley was, but anyway, I just said to him, I put it into community, sorry, it will be a little bit. There was a big, in the paper, I saw about how people were patting the TCDC on their back for cycle education. Well, if we're going to do cycle education, how about I put here, you're obviously unaware of the cycle signs on the footpath south and north of Ferguson Drive, sea wall. His reply to me, there's a bit more, but his reply was, Thames-Coromandel District Council does not promote cyclists riding on footpaths and undertakes cyclist education courses around the district to train and educate cyclists to ride on the road or recognise cycle paths. Well, of course they recognise cycle paths because I've got a sign there, both ends, north and south, of the seawall saying share with care. So they're telling you're telling us that we can do it. The other one that's a really serious one is the one between Kuranui Bay and the next little bay, which some call Tararoo Bay. It says cyclists dismount. Well, why are cyclists on the footpath? Now, unfortunately, I did not have a...
Be concise and get to
Yes, I will.
We need to finish, sorry.
Fine.
Yep.
The bottom line is, Ed Farley says it's nothing to do with the council, it's up to the police, and the police say it's a council thing. Nobody takes ownership of it. Sadly, especially that one on the Tararoo, which is narrow, it's a very narrow path with part of the foliage overgrowing on it. I do know a lot of people, and I've seen them walking. There's people on mobility scooters, there are people out with their dogs, people out there running and what have you. There is no room for someone on a cyclist going flat tack around there. Can I ask again, and I've been banging on this for years, but can you please take away those signs? And the last one is at the wharf. The council sold the wharf or gave the wharf back, and 1 second, you're being encouraged to go. There is private property, and people to get onto that cycle, or not cycle, but the walkway there, have to go through a working boatyard. How can they access that without going through private land?
Well, your points have been taken, so we'll see what we can do.
So can I please have a written reply from what's going to be taken on the points, please?
Sure.
And as I say, I'm not being for the sake of being a banger. I actually care passionately about my community, and I put a lot of hours into it voluntarily, not to be lip service. And last thing, I was told that I could pick up an agenda downstairs, and I had to wait over 5 minutes for them to find out who, where, what and what, and to get one printed out. So communication is not going through your staff.
Yes, Martin, you've got it.
Oh, sorry, Martin.
So I just wanted to thank you on the fact that you walked the entire length of both sides of Holland Street to let businesses know about the beach hop.
I did that 2 months beforehand.
Indeed.
They were given their handout the day before.
Yeah, so I think it was great that you did that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As I say, I do care about my community, and if I can help the council, and I've said this in the past, and anyway, I don't mind giving my time voluntarily, but I do get offended by lip service when it is only just that, lip service just to be, oh, well, you know, she's gone, you'll forget about it. I'm working with too many old ones for that.
Fair enough.
And they're great players. Thank you.
Thank you. Public forum. Mover and seconder. Thanks, Dolly.
Oh,
Yeah, nice.
Just, yes.
Were you wanting to be in public forum? Oh, okay. Just come forward.
Good morning, board. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be in public forum or not, but I'll do it anyway. So yeah, I really just wanted to take the opportunity, and I wasn't quite sure the right time, but this is the right time, to welcome Anya, who's our library manager, and just introduce Anya to you as a board. So Anya's been on board for a short number of weeks. Can you remind me how long?
4.5.
4.5 weeks, there we go. So Anya and I have caught up a few times. Anya's been out and about into the community, which is great. Anya has lots of ideas, and we're really supportive of that moving forward. The library's a real core service for us, and particularly for Thames, you know, like having the main library here, that I think is something that's fantastic, and I think, you know, we're kind of going to really work together and try and move things forwards with the community for the library service. And so yeah, I'm really excited that we managed to secure Anya, and yeah, so I'll hand over to you if you want to say anything to the board. It's up to you.
Okay, no problems. Thank you. Kia ora, dear elected members. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for your very, very warm welcome, not only in the council, but also on a few, I would call social occasions, like the Kiwi Fusion, music performance, the business association, and probably a few other events. Absolutely pleasure and honor to be here and working with the council. Starting my journey as a library manager is very exciting, and I hear great support from the community. And I also rely on you as the representatives from the community on the feedback and the way forward for our libraries in the district. I really would like to hear the good, the bad and the ugly. Would love to hear your ideas, how libraries are placed and where you would like the libraries to be. The libraries these days are hubs of the community, from the babies to our senior members of the community and everybody in between. There is no distinction between the people who they are just people. Really looking forward to meeting you on many more occasions, brainstorming, working out the plan and actually implementing it for the greater good of the community, lifelong learning, bridging to pleasure, curiosity and better outcomes, literacy of our people. Kia ora.
Yeah.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy the journey. Yeah, it's a wonderful facility we have there, and it really is the centre of a lot of community stuff too. It's good.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Yeah, I can't believe it's only been 4.5 weeks. I think when I have not been into the library, and yet I think I've met you on 5 different occasions. And it's not been in the library, so you're certainly getting out there and getting a message out into the community. And I think that's fantastic. Good on you.
Thank you. If you can introduce me to other community members, organizations, groups, individuals, please, by all means, do so. Thank you.
Would it, sorry,
Yeah, no worries, mate.
would it maybe be appropriate for the Thames Library to host this after 5?
Yeah, we can definitely think about that, yeah. See why not. We've had one in here before, obviously. We had one in the council chambers a few meetings ago, so.
Random thought.
Yeah, very random, but yeah, that's good.
Thank you for your support. We forwarded that suggestion to the organisers, and probably it will be around spring.
Oh, okay. I think
It's already happening.
it wasn't on
Still a good idea.
Still very good day. Thank you for your support.
Great. Thank you, board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've concluded the library item in the public forum. So we'll move and second that. Thank you. Conflicts of interest from any of the members, chairs. Relating to any items on the agenda, any conflicts of interest? Items not on the agenda, are there any items not on the agenda?
No further items to add.
No further items to add. Minutes of confirmation, 1.5. Take them as being read. Any matters arising from those minutes? No matters arising. I'm going to move from seconder. Thanks, Cherie. Second, Peter. Those all in favour? Aye. Against? 2.1, request to retain funds. Page 15 of your agenda. And Shah, thank you.
Good morning.
Two community groups approached, one club and one community group approached council to retain funds for the grant that they were approved for last year. First one was the Junior Cricket Club for $7,000 towards the cost to form 3 enclosed cricket nets at Rhodes Park, and then the Thames Museum Society for $3,000 to assist with the establishment of the new permanent gallery. The club, the cricket club, are approaching businesses for financial and labour or material support, and they have said that council staff have also requested that construction of the nets project does not start until we have all the funding raised to complete it. Hence the request to retain funds into the next financial year. and Thames Museum Society, sorry, due to the COVID-19 lockdown and the resignation of the previous chairperson, and essentially have to start again with the gallery, Thames Through the Ages gallery that they proposed originally.
Okay, yes, thank you.
I went to the prize giving of the Junior Cricket Club for reasons which don't have to be explained. And I was incredibly impressed with the energy, the support, the number of parents and grandparents that were there, the different diverse coaches, and I just would fully, and they talked about this being their next major project. And so I would have no qualms at all about supporting their
Right, thank you. That's good to hear. And I know that they've had issues relating to the location of those facilities as well, because they're a little bit back of Rose Park, aren't they? Not that accessible.
I think what I've heard is that they are not happy, the others out at Rose Park aren't happy for them to go where they thought they were going to go, so now they've pushed right back to where they can.
Yeah.
Which is a bit sad.
Yeah.
I don't know how we can change that really, because rugby has said not putting it there because that's our training area.
Okay.
Well, so that's another
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's another issue, yeah, sure, but it's all, those issues actually are holding it up a little bit as well too, in terms of debating those issues and getting resolution. All right, and then the other one with the Museum Society, is it the explanations there?
Yeah. In the agenda is a letter from the Chair, Carolyn McKenzie,
Yeah, I can see that.
the reasons for the reasons why the grant hasn't been spent.
So you'd like a resolution to retain the funding if the board actually approves that today? Yes, and so, yep, so point 2, approve the retention of $7,000 for Thames Junior Cricket Club. Well, the suggested resolution is there. I've got to move on. Thanks, Martin. The second, Robin.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Done. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Was that the 2 and 3?
Yep.
Right.
2.2, annual community grants, priority areas or themes funding. Thanks, Rose, if you'd like to speak to that.
Mr Chairman, Commissioners, members and staff, the next grant round is coming up in July, so the proposed date to advertise we'll advertise in June, and then the grant contestable round will open in July and close at the end of July. So the purpose of this report is to confirm whether you'd like to identify any priorities or themes for that grant round.
So, Rose, some of the suggestions there would be is that because there's a review.
That's right.
Perhaps we could actually defer until then and maintain the status quo in the meantime.
So the current grant policy was adopted implemented from July 2013. So it's due for review, and we have agreed to review that in 21-22. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss the grant policy, the criteria, priorities, themes, the package, if you like, pretty soon after July, I hope.
So that seems a sensible approach in terms of just waiting for the review so we can actually, do it in conjunction with that.
Yes.
In conjunction with the policy.
That's my suggestion.
That would be the suggestion that's being made. So there's a suggested resolution that actually does consider that. Is that correct? Yep. So, for a move and second for that. Or there any further discussion before we do that?
it.
Thanks, Martin. Second. Sally, second. Is there any further discussion you might want some clarification on regarding it? In terms of the status quo, everyone's happy who understands the status quo. So that's all good for the time being. No, that's all good. Okay, thank you.
Under the two options, the second option talks about how community groups will interpret the purpose of grant funding to be more general, and then the high risk that funding won't be allocated towards programs, initiative, events that assist the community board to achieve strategic outcomes. But I guess when we're looking at those individual grants, then we can still, we don't have to, presumably we don't have to have a stated set of outcomes that would just rigorously apply. We're just saying, well, it doesn't sort of seem to fit the vibe of things rather than the actual having these strategic outcomes. Is it a big risk? I haven't heard it.
No, so one of the workshop items today is to go through the proposed criteria for grant assessment. So we'll have an opportunity to do that later on today.
I have a question. So I said that the policy is adopted by the council. So how do each community board get their priorities into the policy? So if we come up with a policy that we only want to promote, I don't know, something, does the council have to agree to that? Can there be something in the policy that says Thames wants to do that? Do we have to get everybody else to agree with us?
So it is a district-wide policy, and ideally, the criteria would reflect some local flavour. And I guess the time to discuss that is when we review the package.
Good.
All right, that's cool.
I think no surprises for the community this year, and involvement in the review process, so that then come July 1, 22. So I think we need to start soon, along with 100 other things probably, but let's not decide to review and then leave it till March of the year after, and oh my gosh, it's too late again.
Go on with that. All right, we're all happy around the table, so thank you both for that. That's much appreciated. Thames Connector bus proposal and extension.
No. It's the easement request, 3.1.
Oh, 3.1, sorry. Yep.
Okay.
Right.
We actually have John Muston here to speak on behalf of Nicole Way. So John's online.
He's muted.
No, it was just an operated delay pushing the right buttons when I was doing something else, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
That's the one.
So the first report, there is the Tapu Farms one.
That's right.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. So this is a request by PowerCo to get an easement over. There's a subdivision taking place by. Sorry. There's a subdivision has taken place up Tapu Farms Road Creek there. They have an existing private easement across the river in exactly the same location, but as a result of the subdivision, they've needed to upgrade the power supply. And to do that, and before they inject money into it, PowerCo have said, can we please have an easement across the stream? So the recommendation before you is to grant that. As it is a reserve, we do have to consider if it's being material impacted or permanently affected. And what we're suggesting in our report to you is that is negligible. It's 2 poles on either side of the stream. There's an existing wires. The wires will continue. So there's nothing different really happening.
Right, and so there's no resulting RMA issues or anything like that. I know we have got, as of right, able to issue that consent under the lease, but
look, there's no issues with that. This whole thing is stemmed from a subdivision that's been through the subdivision process through council, so no issues.
All been signed off there.
My only question, John, is in terms of the reserve, is there any issues with Ngāti Tamatara around, you know, I know that they're very interested in some of our reserves up there. Is this one of them or not?
We have not asked them, Mr. Chairman. That's something we could do if that was the board's wish. I wouldn't expect them to object to something that's already there, but hey, that's your call.
Right, what's the call of the community board? I'm not quite sure the protocol as far as that's concerned. Would it be okay to actually ask them? Easy enough?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the community board will ask for you?
Yeah, that's what
or John will ask you? Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
John,
I would expect that it will be coming from.
Mr. Chairman, if this was an issue that you wanted to resolve and you want to engage with the appropriate iwi, whether it's Ngāti Tamatara or Ngāti Mara up there, I'm not quite sure, probably Ngāti Tamatara, the board could pass the resolution subject to the consent of Ngāti Tamatara being obtained.
Okay, is everyone happy with that?
No, I think you need to ask them first.
Yeah,
I think
that just makes it really final if
makes
there's
it
an issue and it takes away, yeah, so that's a little bit formal. I just don't, yeah, it's just important to me that the particular area is important to and many different people as well, not just being, yeah. So I would, sorry.
So this is more a procedural thing now that we're discussing, John.
I understand.
Very good. So the recommendation is?
Just that, so we recently had, I won't go into too much detail because I think it was in public exclusion.
All right.
An area where iwi were asked, iwi weren't happy, staff went back and found out that in fact they didn't have to consult and the thing went ahead anyway. It just worries me that we might have just be aware that, you know, what are we actually asking iwi? Are we saying they've got a right to stop it? Are we just?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that resolution isn't, I don't think that's correct. I think all I ask is, has the issue of iwi been considered? It is no, and to me we put that back to operations to consider the relevance of that. That's as far as I want to go. Bruce?
Through the chair, Martin raises a very good point, is that we have to be careful with the process and we actually make sure we manage expectations when we're going out asking questions. You know, so that we are going out, and I'm not suggesting we don't. I'm just saying we need to manage expectations around what we're doing. You know, because the last thing I want to go is, like that other example, we go and talk to someone and say, hey, do you want this? And they say no, and we go, oh, well, bad news, we're doing it anyway, because actually the process doesn't actually allow you to stop it. If we'd gone and said, look,
so all I'm saying is check the process.
Exactly, yeah,
if your process is correct, well then that's fine. That's all I'm raising.
So, yeah, I think it's good. It's good discussion, and it's good to throw it back to us to make sure we're managing that process.
So does that require an alteration to the suggested resolution?
I don't think so. I think it's a comment that I've made. It'll be there, and staff will assess the relevance or whether it's nonsense or not.
So it's okay just to attach a note about that?
Yeah, that'll be.
I've already done that.
Already done that? Okay, I'll move for a second for that resolution.
I'll move it.
Thanks, yeah. Second.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robin. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you, John. Much appreciated.
It does have to go to council first, so there might be an opportunity for that consultation to happen before it does.
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely think so. Thank you. All the best.
I think the next item is mine too, Mr. Chairman.
You do, is it? Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah,
Rider renewal and rent review, destination Coromandel Thames, yes, okay.
Yeah, this is fairly straightforward, Mr. Chairman. They have an existing lease that provides for a renewal for a period, and gives the council the opportunity to have a rent review. This organisation meets the criteria of the council's policy in respect of community rents, and thus the recommendation before you.
So moved and seconded. I think that's reasonably straightforward under the policy. So, thanks, Martin. Second. Thanks, Peter. Those in favour, say aye. Aye. Against? Thanks, John. That's pretty
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Pleasure. Thank you. 4.1, Bruce.
Good morning again. So just the standard work program that's normally on your agenda. Happy to take any questions. I've got a couple of team members in the room who might be able to provide a little bit more detail if you require that. So fire away.
I'll take the thing with. And are there any questions that clarification that you'd like to ask, Bruce? Well, you've got the opportunity.
So, first, I have some concerns around the dates. And I'm just wondering whether it would be useful to have two columns related to dates. So one which says what the, if you like, the original completion date was intended to be. And secondly, what the date now of the revised one, because in lots of cases they're revised. For instance, in the Toker Valley, there's stuff about 2023. It seems to me that the revised date is well beyond 30th of June for whatever is supposed to happen.
Yes.
And that just gives an easier way for us to kind of see whether you know.
Yeah. So through the challenge, I suppose I'm trying to understand what that will tell you apart from that the program slipped.
Yeah.
I suppose it indicates that.
Tells us when we're now expecting to see the end of the project.
Yeah, but that date will show you when you now expect to see the end of it. Because that forecast or expected completion date has changed as things change.
Okay, so when I look at the Toker Valley one, I misunderstand what it says there when it says a completion date of June 2023.
Yeah.
And then the column I've got the completion date of 2021.
Yeah, so that should have changed. So that's wrong, that date, that should have changed.
Should I be lying awake at night worrying about the water down at Matatoki, Puri and Omahu? You know, like I'm really excited about the number of items on the workshop this time, and I'm wondering about next time whether, as a board member, I don't think I understand enough about the water issues down south, and I don't understand enough about Toker Valley. And, you know, I know there'll be decisions of those, so it would need to be post-LTP, but going into the new financial year, I feel excited about the opportunity to understand more about the whole issues, and those are the two that stand out for me in terms of my knowledge base.
Yeah, and I can give you more information on that, and I'm always happy that if you want to add something to like a future workshop, that we really get into a bit more detail, do a deep dive into some of those to make sure that we understand those, then I'm more than happy to do that.
It's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, it is a good suggestion because there's a lot of detail in there for those things, so I'm happy that we spend a bit more time getting into those.
So we can just note that and include it on the future workshop.
Sounds good, just let us know. We'll work with Ari about times and stuff. So I'll go back to your first point. I wouldn't lie awake at night about those projects, but obviously I understand that's just me saying that, and you want to get.
I think I just need a level of understanding of where we're at in our relationship with partners, and
Yes, and they are complex. They're not. They're not straightforward, these projects.
So we know the Thames Valley infrastructure extension is it's a movable target to some extent, isn't it?
Yes,
depending on certain things happening. So
it is.
A little bit more explanation there would be great.
It's a bit of a matrix, you know, with the different townships and different options around the way we can do things and different types of things coming in around, you know, if we're trying to incentivise growth in different communities down south of Thames, it does kind of change things a little bit.
Can I just about the Brown Street toilet,
Yes.
so this construction is going to start late May, so we're here in May now. And then at the end it says work scheduled to start following completion of Pepe toilet, so when they finish over there, they're going to come over here.
Correct, yeah.
How soon are they going to finish over there? Like, is
Pretty
that work?
Things are going well with their Pepe toilet. There is a little bit more to do, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do get some slippage, you know, just because that's what happens with projects. So, but you're right. The Brown Street one is dependent on Pepe being landed. So I had a quick look at the Pepe one earlier this week, and it's going pretty well. I don't know if Andrew's got anything.
Official opening Friday.
This Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
So
that's the toilet,
There we
and
go.
then I think that will free up the contractors. We'll still be doing stuff, finishing off around landscaping and that, but as far as toilets actually go, that's great. Thank you, Andrew, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So just getting back to the date, so these
Yes.
ones where they're marked off track in red,
Yes,
but the completion date is the 30th of June.
yeah.
You have confidence that we're getting there
Yeah.
or pretty close.
Yeah, I think so, and I guess the thing is that, and I'm pretty hard with my team and Andrew's team around the colours, you know, because I never like that we're optimistic and then suddenly it's you know, green or orange for 11 months and then in June it suddenly goes red. That's not a situation I can live with. So I kind of push them quite hard to be more conservative with their estimates and the colours and go for the red. So the thing with the reds are often they'll be due to, it might just be a simple budget thing. Either we've gone over the budget and we need to do a revision, or we're way under the budget and we're not getting enough spend. So that could be a couple of reasons that it would be red, or it can be just because we've got risks on the project, you know, and there might be risks around delivery or there might be risks around stakeholders. And so any of those will trigger a red in that column. At this stage, we're saying we're going to get everything done, and to prove the main toilet is the one I'm looking at right now, that's red by the end of June. But all we can do is just try and keep you guys in the loop as far as how things go. But at the moment, the project manager is saying that he can get it done. So yeah.
No, that's excellent, Bruce. I mean, where it's red, just needs a little bit more explanation to the board, I guess. That's the why it's happening. I mean, that's,
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment, yeah.
I think it's great to see the airfield on the work program.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it might be quite good if we could have a full briefing just on where things are at with the airfield.
Yeah, we can get, we've got the team in the room if you want to have a quick chat on that now. If Andrew and Marissa can step up to the top table.
that's an opportunity also.
Yeah, very cosy. Jam.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning, Marissa.
Morning.
Right. The airfield. We were going to tender, as you probably know, for the ground leases for the potential development of stage 1 at the airfield. And that tender documents were somewhat wide open and needed to be more prescriptive. So we, the Chief Executive's request, we pulled the tender and it no longer exists. As the airfield is a reserve, the leases that we let have to come under the Public Leases Act, and there are two options with regard to awarding leases or agreeing to leases. One is a public auction or tender, which is the way we went through before, and the alternative is via a public notification, excuse me, which basically is an advert in the newspaper as to what we are offering and the ground rents that we decide are appropriate. With regard to the last item there, we have existing valuations on what we could potentially charge as far as ground rent is concerned, and the valuer that we employed previously has been asked to do another valuation as of 2021. So that's current at the moment. The design guidelines that went with the tender document previously were somewhat a little confusing. So Larissa and I have reviewed those, and we'll be changing them to design specifications to keep control over what is potentially built on the airfield. We've recently visited Pittianga Airfield and Tekofi, excuse me, on Monday this week, and out of that there's a lot of learning points on more what not to do, and they were very good, and maintaining control over what's built on our land was very high as the recommendations, especially from Tekofi. They're both private airfields. Tekofi has got the T-hanger shape hangars, which are very good and accommodate most of the aeroplanes like Cessnas and small microlights that are used there and potentially will be here. So we are, with regard to the future, at the next community board meeting on the 30th of June, we intend to come back to the board with an updated lease document, design specifications, and a bit of other information that we're still reviewing at the moment for your approval. And then I expect that in July we'll go to the market and see who's interested. We're having fortnightly meetings with the users at the Aero Club. Peter was at yesterday's meeting to probably improve the communication with the users. They seem to be going well, Peter, from yesterday, and I'm catching up with Warren on Monday, just because he couldn't be there yesterday, and yeah, that's how we're moving things forward at the moment.
Well, thanks for taking a step back in relationship to that. So
yeah,
a step back is the best way to go forward. And you know, and working in a more prescriptive tender process, you know, this is really what is required.
Yeah.
And no, just thank you. And it's good to see that it's on track, Andrew. Well done. Yeah.
Well, Larissa as well.
Andrew, just the advice that you seem to be giving here seems different to the advice that we as a community board received previously around the leases in particular. And I'm confused as to why there is new advice that's now being offered to us with regards the leases, as we understood that to satisfy the requirements of leases and so on, we had to either go to auction or to tender. And previously, the board had never been presented with the option of a public notification. I'm at a loss as to understand why the advice is so different now as to what we had previously received.
I can't comment on the advice that you received previously because I didn't give it. However, I've reviewed the Public Leases Act with Ian McCoo, one of our solicitors, and there are two clauses in the Act that state how you can go to the market under the Public Bodies Leases Act, and one of them is the public auction or tender, and the next clause basically says, notwithstanding that, you could go to public notification, which is a little confusing. So I looked at these, brought in one of our legal team, and he said, yeah, you can. It is odd, but you can do either. So, Peter, I can't comment on what you've been told previously, but I can tell you with 100% confidence that we can do that, and we will do that.
Thank you, Andrew. I would like to point out that the advice we had received, we as a community board took on good faith because it came from council to us, and we, in our conversations and discussions with people in our community, in this particular case, for me, it was particularly the people around the airfield, were basing the conversations in my direction based on the advice that we were receiving. And it appears, not for I'm sure any malicious reasons, but it appears that the advice that we were given has been poor, and that has had an impacted reputational impact. And both for council, I believe, and for us as community board members, and that concerns me.
I understand your concern, and the regular meetings we're having with the Aero Club, who at our first meeting queried why we were going to tender the first meeting, is what we've taken on board. So I can only basically say at this moment is that we're trying to rebuild the Aero Club in particular, the users who we met yesterday, their confidence in what we're doing now and moving forward. And another comment that came from us was they don't understand or didn't understand the process that staff have to go through to get things in front of resolutions passed by this community board and also by council. So we've issued them something yesterday to show what process we need to go through to get things passed, so they have a better understanding moving forward of what we will be doing. And the fortnightly meetings that we will have with them, or having with them, should I hope, improve their opinion of what we're doing.
So my comment on that is I think there has been outstanding progress in restoring the confidence of those users in the council and in their process and in what's happening. And to me that became very evident yesterday, and also in informal discussions I've had with Warren and with Jeff, that their confidence in what you and Marissa are doing and the level of communication is night and day, and it's fantastic, and I think that's really good.
Good, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for raising those points, Peter, because they're important points.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So that's the
Can I just ask a question? In terms, while you're there, Bruce, in terms of the change of contract around parks and reserves, the community and us it'll be pretty much seamless. Or what is the process for that?
Through the chair, I'd love it to be seamless. I think the reality is it's not going to be quite seamless, and I've got some sympathy for the incumbent contractor, because as they get closer to the end of their contract date at each move, it's harder for them to hold on to staff. Now, a lot of staff I envisage will transition across to Rec Services, and I know Rec Services have met with all the smart staff and had discussions and provided some confidence. However, the reality is that some people will decide this is now a time that they need to make a change and they get out of this industry or whatever. Probably a lot of discussions going on in the media at the moment probably will help that as well. It's one of the sexiest industry to work in, local government. But anyway, we digress. So I think that some of them have already left as well. There have been people who have decided no, they want to make a change and leave. So the challenge for them is hanging on to their staff. Yeah, exactly. The other challenge for them is that as I understand it, they've only got a couple of very small parts contracts outside of this one, and the real focus is on solid waste.
Yes.
And so from their perspective, they've got a lot of gear, and I imagine they'll want to start selling gear. And so we need them to hold the line and maintain the service level until 30 June. So, but obviously a lot of contracts change at 1st of July, so the market will be good for selling gear. So there's a bit of a juggle there. I know they have sold a couple of mowers, but they have hired equipment in to keep going. So that's a rather long-winded way of answering your question, in that we would like it to be seamless, but I think there'll be a few little hiccups. And I know my team are working hard, and Larissa particularly is working very hard on some of the stuff down at Rhodes Park. You know, as winter sports is really kicking off, making sure that we're getting the level of service that we need for our community. So, yeah, thank you for that hard work, Larissa.
I just wonder whether some comms around that might be useful, just in our email or however we communicate, in terms so people, you know, don't get a flood of this hasn't been mowed this week or whatever. Like there is a changeover, things will flow. You know, like just preempt it, because not everyone in the community will know that we've changed it.
Yeah, we just have to be really careful with the way we do that, you know, because otherwise we don't look like we're throwing, you know, our existing contractor under the bus.
Oh, no.
And I know that's not your intent.
No.
All I'm saying is that there's a real nuance and subtlety of communication, but yeah, we can have a think about how we do that. Yeah.
Did not the last newspaper, I read on the newspaper somewhere or
Yes, there was talk about it, so we have been out there and said it. So, but yeah.
And it's about, and you were thinking smart, which was great.
Yeah. So it's challenging time to, you know, transition between two contractors, but we're bringing through it before with other services, so we'll get through it.
Any other matters arising from the work program?
Shall I bring up to go on? I see it's red, but I've heard more than what's going on there from Kay.
Right.
I've actually talked to us as well.
Yeah.
I know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I just see that it's red.
Yeah, and again, Peter's question was a good one, and you know, again, there's the subtleties again of communication, you know, and like a lot of our project engineers and project managers are very factual with the way they put things, but there's trying to get the commentary right for the board, you know, around what we include and what we don't include, you know, so to try and fine tune our comments a little bit better to explain the reason for it being read. So, and I've taken that on board, and we'll definitely make those improvements moving forwards for the next meeting. So.
Well, I know that the Tipperary committee is very busy trying to get the school contractors to apply, so I look at it to see it read, thinking, well, actually, I think it's happening.
Yeah, and
it
possibly
should be Amber.
It probably should be Amber. Yeah, it possibly is. I just look at the budget and the time left to spend the money, and that causes me to want to keep it at a red. But I totally hear what you're saying, that, you know, if we've got some confidence, you know, things are moving, then we can change it to Amber. So.
Okay, we have a resolution that receives the Thames Community Board work program. I'm very receptive to that.
I'll move it.
Yep.
Thanks, Cherie. Thanks, Robin. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And thank you, Bruce, for your time to actually work through that. No, thanks, Andrew and Carissa.
Yep.
There's awesome work going on there with the airport. We really appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll just stay here in case there's any questions.
Yes, from the action schedule. So the next item.
Thanks, Bruce.
Sure, there won't.
So I'll take that as being read. Is there any further comments you'd like to make, Ariana, relating to the action schedule?
Just that. The second part is just in regards to the Rotary Club installing the seat. This one is still progressing. Derek's waiting for a bit, so yeah, I don't have anything to update about that.
Yeah. Sure, thank you. Everybody else happy, Martin?
It's about the Victoria Street, so I've seen the road manager's response, and part of that response was basically saying that there hadn't been any significant building or any other type work up that street, so it was unlikely that the traffic volumes had increased. However, on the, must have been pretty much the last submission to the long-term plan, we heard in the Karonga Tramping Club, and I went and talked to them afterwards and said, oh, has there been more traffic up there? And he said that what happens is you get people coming down from Auckland, they get to Thames and they want to get up to Crosby's clearing in the hut by, before it's dark. If they go to the Victoria Street and drive up there, it basically saves them 2 to 3 hours
Of walking time.
of walking rather than going up the back of Waitara. So, his feeling was there was more traffic out there. So.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting.
I'm happy, so through the chair, I'm happy to revisit that one and go back and just check with Ed on that. What I would say is, without giving any of the numbers, I'd say that the increase in volumes due to people coming and tramping would be very low.
It's not doubling.
No, I don't think it would get us something about that, you know what I mean? It's just, anyway.
What's the possibility of a traffic counter?
Yes, so that's something I was also going to suggest. I'll talk to Ed and see if that's an area, how recently it's had a traffic count on it, because we do them regularly across different roads.
Right.
Like a 3-year program where they try and do it through most roads. So I'll check and see what the latest data was and if we can get another one up there if we need to.
So would you be doing it, also, I'd wonder, would you be doing it like winter and summer, because obviously there's different.
There are
different levels of traffic at different times.
So normally they'll do the traffic counting. They do different times of year, but usually they'll do it at a busy time of the year.
Yeah.
So they'll often, in those areas that have a summer peak, they'll try and get the traffic counting equipment out there, knowing that obviously that's the peak.
Thanks.
But I'll make a note to go back and follow up with Ed on that.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Sheree, for that comment. Yes, Martin?
So I was just, several of these say that, so some of these in verbal and other reports will be presented in the workshop rather than in this.
Yeah.
Report? Right, okay.
Yep. All right, any other further points of clarification?
I'll move.
Going to the action schedule, you'll move. Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Peter. Second. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Once again. Awesome. So we'll just keep going. Members' reports, we'll finish this and then have a cup of tea. Members' reports, thank you. Everybody? Sheree, yeah, sure.
This year I represented the mayor, I did double actually, and the member of Parliament for Coromandel. So I felt a little bit like a schizophrenic. To Peru School Anzac Day service, which was really cool, a very cool service done by that school. And lots of grandparents and parents that were there. Thames Netball Centre their last meeting, have a discussion around obviously the Thames precinct, and the new Thames Sports precinct vision. It was a little bit cool. Last Wednesday the season started, so we're now out at Rhodes Park every Wednesday night. There's lots of training happening too, so they're booking and having trainings. Thames Education and Sports Trust meeting, which both Stuart and I went to. It was really information gathering meeting, and it showcased other towns who have moved to forming sports hubs, which was really, I think, really mind-opening. And I think that as we talk to the different sports codes around how, maybe when, it will be really good for our town, it will be really good for our town to bring that community together in that hubbing space. It's just the managing of some codes, just they want autonomy. It's hard to get them to want to hop over the fence. Thanks, me.
Excellent, thanks, Julie. Yeah, good. Rob?
Gosh. No, the three of us have been quite busy. Recently we've had the long-term plan hearings, and it was quite interesting. We had 2 sessions here in Thames and 1 in Whitianga, and the ones in Thames were quite varied in terms of who came. And our local, we had the Coronga Valley Sakaway people come and present a really good presentation, and the other really good presentation was about the total mobility scheme that Bruce talked about earlier. And so those are things that are going to go into the deliberation mix on the 1st and 2nd of June. The other three things that I've been at recently, which have been really worth noting, Thames Coast Kiwi Care returned 5 Kiwi over the weekend from Operation Nest Egg. They were on Rotorua Island. They were brought back, and I had the privilege with Martin of going up on Saturday to a meet and greet and got to see a Kiwi, which was really quite special. It's very nice seeing them, behind glass at the. If you have the patience to stay and watch in the dark rooms of the zoos, it's nice to see them. But to see it as close to the water jug as to me now was really quite a moving experience. And then on Sunday, something completely different, we went out in the rain, we planted trees with the Solar Punk group, which was really lovely. I was expecting, because it was quite cold and quite rainy and quite Mother's Day, that we'd be alone with us spades, but it was a lovely community atmosphere. There were probably, when we left just after morning tea, there were probably about 30 people there. So it was really lovely to see people coming together in the rain. There was not a competition for how many plants you could plant, but there was a competition. No, I didn't. I wasn't counting. I'm not competitive. Don't laugh at me, Sally. I can tell you stories. But there was a small competition about who could find the biggest size earthworm, and I also did not win that. So there you go. But it was fun.
How long was it? How long?
How long was the planting?
Yeah.
They had it on for 6 hours. We were there for about 2.
Right.
Yeah. And they said, Debs was saying before, they planted about 600 trees.
Did you think I was asking how long the earthworm was? No, how long was the plant?
Well, the earthworm was a good
No, excellent. Thanks, Robert. It's great to hear all that stuff.
Yes, at the risk of repeating some of the things that Robin said, yes, we had heard a lot of submissions over the last previous week. Went to the Anzac Day dawn and the 10 o'clock service, and was also lucky, I think, to be at the Equine Rights investiture, the thing where she got the medal, which was hosted here, and that was a very special occasion because the Mayor broke the protocol and allowed friends and family that were here to speak about what Gwen's done since she's been in Thames. So yeah, that was actually quite a moving experience, and a great little gathering up at the Kauranga Hall to celebrate the work that's recently been done there. And the thing that really stood out there was Peter was helping to run egg and spoon races and sack races and things, and I think you had to have 3 heats with 10 children in each. So very simple maths that enabled me to work out that there's at least 30 children in the valley, and it does sort of go in waves, but it seems at the moment there's a good community spirit in Kauranga Hall, so that was also pretty neat. And I got grabbed by a lady who wanted me to pose with a soft toy unicorn, some funding and they were doing for something or other. So that was one of the more unusual official things I've done in the last month.
No, excellent, Martin. Thank you.
The Queen of the Cook Islands came about a month ago to here. I represented the Mayor and the Council. They were honouring about 30 Cook Island people who went to the First World War.
Oh, right.
He is, one of them is buried up at Shortland, so they had a ceremony there, and then the council hosted them at the Bight. What was truly astonishing for me was the interaction between the cooks and Ngāti Maru. Like, he'd taken a different name, and they worked all this out during the procedure. He'd taken Alfred Napo so that he could get into the army, and there was other Alfred Numpos there trying to work out who'd taken their name. And as the day went on, and as we got to the Waiatas became, gave me goosebumps. And so a really important occasion, I think, and just made me think of how important some of those historical cemeteries are, even though operationally they're a real challenge to maintain. So a very special time. LTP, Anzac, like we were at dawn and 10 o'clock as well. It's really clear to me, and Ruth's here, we too didn't like the signage, and we couldn't take it down pre-dawn because that would have been more disrespectful to have us up on ladders as people were arriving. So it came down as soon as the dawn service had started. RSA, we worked really closely around whether we were going to shift things in Mary Street so they could walk through or come down the alleyway, and we're well on top of the speaker problem. I want to acknowledge Chris Webb, who's we've talked about, and he's about to become the president of the Rotary Club, and there's several meetings and lunches that he's invited me to, and I'll pass those invitations around because Rotary's 150 years old, I think, and 100 years old in Thames. And just the decision at council pre-LTP, so I'm not preempting decisions, but that acknowledgement around Thames housing that was passed at the last council, just thinking at the business after 5 last night, how impassioned a lot of our business people are about progress in that, and how we can work with them right from the start so that we've got them on board, got their skill set, got their energy, and that we're not working backwards when we come up with an idea that they've been part of that. So just a suggestion going forward.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah,
and I'm really jealous of Peter's pictures in this formal report. Thank you. They are awesome because they're a written record. Yeah.
To me, I guess there would just be 2 things I want to highlight, I suppose. First of all, in there I've put my assessment of the Thames Business Association. On the 3 areas where, towards the end of last year, I raised concerns with the chair. One was around the sustainability, one was around credibility, and one was around the dynamics of what was going on with the various people and personalities in there. My assessment is the credibility of the Thames Business Association has improved significantly in the last 6 months. I think we're seeing some really the kind of things we'd expect to see. I think the submission that they put in for the LTP was a well-constructed, well put together, and reflected the sort of advocacy that I think we should be expecting from the Thames Business Association. So in my mind, 6 months ago, I think credibility was probably 3 out of 10. I'm feeling now we're kind of getting closer to 8 out of 10 in terms of credibility of this organisation. In terms of the dynamics, they continue to be managed in a way, in my assessment, that it's not inhibiting the work of the Thames Business Association. And anecdotally, I think there is some moves that some changes of personnel roles or something that are coming up that should continue to improve the dynamics. So I think that's the positive things. In terms of the sustainability, we continue to be concerns about the sustainability. I know the submission they put in touched on some partial solutions to that. I think it would be very sad if come July the 1st, the Thames Business Association would be forced to, just because it can't sustain itself, forced to go into recession or whatever it is. So that's a big challenge for them, and they identify it's a big challenge. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I would like to apologise to my community board colleagues for we talked before about the airfield and the way I was representing us as a board to the people based on information I thought was good information, and I was always representing that we as a board were understood and we were on side and we were totally supportive of that. And I think there has been reputational damage, and I want to apologise to my colleagues for my part in not kind of being part of the solution. And perhaps in hindsight, there's things that I could have done in more detail and more depth that we didn't get to that point. So please accept my apology, and now a new phase, and it's just exciting to see what I saw yesterday, and already positive. But there is that tarnish there, and in my view, we've all been tarnished by that. That's regretful. My apologies. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Nice to receive the apology, Peter, but really it's been yourself just put a lot of energy into it and initiated some of the progress that you see now happening with, for Andrew and Marissa. It's you that actually have formed the meetings, put the subject in front of the CEO and everybody involved, and us, and I, trying to get that alignment all the way through and getting credibility of the process. So thank you, Peter. I don't think apology is warranted or needed. If anything, I'm very pleased, yeah, I'll accept it, but very pleased that you've been involved with it. Thank you very much. From my own point of view, yeah, I did write a report, you would have all seen that. I'd like to just quickly speak to it. The Incentive Streets project, I feel that the feedback has been really positive on the ground, and that looking forward to the update during the workshop. I think a lot of the issues have settled. It's wonderful to go in there and sit around the tables and dine and whatever, and just see the activity that's going on, people that are enjoying the space, and so it's really good, positive stuff. The long-term plan, I did attend some of the long-term plan just to get a feel for the issues. I did make some extra notes as I spoke, in particular regarding roads park. I emphasised the must-have relationship of that versus the need to have, and it will only be a matter of time before it does become a must-have. I emphasised the project relating to Mary Street, in the sense that that project, we've got an infrastructure renewal that might take place in the area, and that is most important, that we're going to actually provide something for that project that is done in alignment with that infrastructure program. I suggest that maybe we need to sit down and, as part of the annual updates, we might do a revised budget, look at a $2 or $3 million upgrade to Mary Street and the immediate surrounds, as opposed to a $9 million plus upgrade. That we know is a nice to have one, possibly not happen. So it's just looking at some of those angles in relationship to trying to get some traction. The business partner fees, I felt really important. I think I circulated to you the importance of business being the impact on business being understood in relationship to any business parking criteria. You councillors will be a little bit close to that situation in terms of maybe suggestions or alternatives, but I also feel that impact needs to have a high regard to that. It spoke about the district-wide solid waste being more ambitious in terms of reducing food to landfill and all those sort of issues that surround education and waste minimisation. I spoke about our economic development activity and thank the long-term plan commitment to accelerate options for land subdivision. It would be wonderful to actually get some short-term gains there. And, you know, in conjunction with the economic growth that we can expect from coal and other sectors, other things that are happening out there that might be really good for our town. I made some emphasis regarding to walk and cycle opportunities in our transformation strategy, urban development strategy, and long-term plan submissions. The importance of trying to establish some of those route walks that we've spoken about through our plans, really important. The long-term plan submission, if you can just bear with me, I particularly enjoyed one submission which was Phil Green in relationship to possibilities of taking down. No doubt the councillors will have a lot to follow through with that in terms of their deliberations, in terms of trying to establish what Phil was saying. I think it was really good. Tina O'Connell's, I thought was a very good high level submission, especially where she spoke about Thames coastal management strategies becoming part of the question line relating to our decision making in the council and various other things. I don't want to really pull out some submissions and feel that all submissions are important, of course, but I just thought these submissions were very important. I enjoyed the Carroll walk cycle opportunities. I also enjoyed the emphasis placed on the long-term plan in relationship submissions on regional economic development, housing, so on. And particularly enjoyed, just to reaffirm what Peter was saying, I enjoyed I thought the Treasury submission was very strong, as well as the Thames Business Association. Submissions were strong. Harrogate Rail Trail, there was a submission there, we've seen it because I'm a trustee of the Harrogate Rail Trail. And it was a submission for some extra funding relating to the fact that if we're going to actually pick up on some of the focus there in relationship to funding. So that is a really important submission. Paul Thompson, Peter and I met with Paul Thompson. He's been engaged for 3 months with economic development criteria on trying to fill a 3-month contract with specific objectives for him, and he asked me for some feedback in relationship to all of that, and so I gave quite a comprehensive report of what I've written to Paul in terms of economic development for the region. So if you get an opportunity to read that, I really appreciate it. Where else are we? 10-year long-term plan. No, that's all okay. Peter's covered the airfield. So yeah, no, that's it. We're happy with it all. Yep. Thank you. So that. Yep. So move and second for the amendment reports. Thanks. We'll adjourn to morning tea and then thank you.
Cool.
Right.